Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's your favorite resident prospect hugger of Mets Twitter. And fortunately or unfortunately, today's segment is going to be about the Mets uh, trading some of my prospects. I guess this is a video that has to be made, whether I say it, post it, got to be talked about. Obviously, the season is now going as planned, I guess, of sorts. The Mets are now obviously in the chase for real. They're probably at this point more eyeballing the Braves for the top wild card rather than just trying to sneak in at the sixth spot. Long way to go. We're not even at the deadline yet. But speaking of the deadline, it's probably time I start talking about something I've been mentioning, obviously, since the last offseason. For some of you, or hopefully a lot of you that have been kind of following me recently in the last couple of years, I have mentioned it's probably time that the Mets start parting with some of my beloved prospects. And I've been talking about it on social media. I'm mentioning kind of the overflow. Again, I'm not trying to just overhype every Mets prospect, even though it's probably what I'm known for, but it's been my opinion now, at least through the beginning of this season or the first half, the Mets are kind of stacked and kind of overflowing with certain types of prospects. For me, it's pretty much starting pitchers, middle infielders, and the young catchers. Now, again, we can debate all day the ceilings, the floors of these guys. Specifically, let's just start with the starting pitchers. Like I'm saying, from Double A and Triple A, I said it going into the season, it was probably going to be overloaded, and sure enough, here we are. And even a few weeks ago, I've had even certain people in the Mets organization mentioning, like, hey, we're a little overflowed. I know the Double A level, specifically in Binghamton, it seems like it's a piggyback fest because there's just way too many starters. They were trying to call up some guys because Stearns is really moving guys up. So the overflow is here. You have some of the true full relievers actually losing some time here and there per week. I believe I might even said it on social media. Guys like McLaughlin, Paul Gervais, even Wilkin Ramos before he got promoted. Those were three kind of high end kind of relievers in Double A. They would go days at a time without pitching, 3, 4, 5 days in a row, which usually under normal circumstances is probably not happening with guys at this level. But because of the other talent going on and because a lot of the starter guys are eating starter minutes, it's been affecting things. Now, for the middle infielders, I've talked about it from the very low levels, now creeping up into low A, high A. It just seems like every lineup is full of middle infielders, like the Padres. They're just kind of having guys play wherever, including someone like from the catcher position, even a Chris Suero is playing even left field to make room for all the catchers in low A. This is what's going on. I feel it's important to start talking about it. You know, is there an overflow? Now, how do you part with the depth? And again, this is just my opinion. I have my own thoughts on all the prospects, obviously, but I also want to take into account some insider information that I have within the Mets organization. I just want to kind of throw it out there, not too many specific details, but I wanted to talk about maybe some guys. I had that recent video of who's up, who's down, again, with some insight internally. Now, I've seen people online mentioning, hey, when it comes to the overload in starting pitchers, maybe we're talking about a Mike Vassell and a Dominic Hamill, which to me, it does kind of make sense to talk about these two guys like this. You have guys that we're not really sure anymore. I know a guy like Vassell, who I love. I've interviewed Mike Vassell. He's extremely hardworking. He's probably one of the most knowledgeable kind of players in the organization. He's very kind of student oriented. Call him like the minor league pitcher version of JD Martinez. He takes a lot of the insight and intel very seriously. So, a guy like him, would he be someone? The K rate is a little bit lower right now, but would he be someone the Mets would be dangling because other guys have kind of like jumped out of the scene? It doesn't necessarily make them untouchable, but at this point in the first half of the season, how do you deny what's going on with a Brandon Sproat and a Jonah Tong and a Tyler Stewart, who recently has been putting up some monster outings? The more he kind of works on and practices the other pitches to add to his arsenal, which already includes the wipeout slider, with those guys kind of taking a leap more than others, What does it mean for guys like Vassell and Hamill? And again, it's my opinion. And again, it'll probably be like, well, then Dove, they're going to want the higher guy. Then to this point, everyone's watching the same games you are, so I understand. But I'm also saying, from a depth perspective, would that be a route that the Mets might be going? Now, who are they high on in the Mets organization? Speaking with different staff and different people around, I know they've been high on obviously Sproat. They were very super excited about Tong. They were also excited about Yoander Suarez a few weeks back, and now he's been slumping a little. So, what are their thoughts currently this week on Yoander Suarez? I mean, that's probably to be determined. I haven't asked for updated insight or thoughts, but that's a guy they were mentioning a few weeks back. It doesn't mean he's untouchable, but I know they were excited about him. And even a recent solid outing from Cade Morris, talking to coaches, they love Cade Morris, even from camp. So would guys like this be the ones they definitely prefer to keep, maybe? I mean, that's my little thing and thought process on that. Now, for the middle infielders, again, we're totally crowded. Who do the Mets love? I mean, I've been kind of alluding to it and saying it a lot online, including my little jokes and my little like nicknames and everything. But the organization is high on Jesus Baez. Uh, the guys that are now falling, what do? Do you want to sell low and trade young, toolsy kids who aren't working out so far this year, like a Ramirez, like a Stanley Consuegra? Is this the year? Kevin Parada. Now, I've mentioned about some of these guys kind of dipping this season for some various reasons and thoughts and insight from the organization. Would they be the kind of like change of scenery type guys, but for the minor league perspective, what's going on? These are some of the names I want to throw out there. The other thing I'll state that is probably stating the obvious, but uh, obviously there's scouts and there's front office staff around watching the games in the last week or two. I've been getting some info here and there about who's watching. There's even certain teams. I know right before the Maton trade, the Rays were already scouting a Binghamton game, which is why I got worried. Like, are they taking one of my guys? I was super worried about that. And I know at Clover Park, the scouts are everywhere. Obviously, they're there a lot anyway. Some of the teams could include the Rays, the Tigers, some of the familiar names that I'm used to as far as an actual team name being put to a scout or whoever. So I know they're around, but not necessarily like, well, this month they're specifically here. They've kind of been there a lot anyway, but it's names to throw out there, it's parks to throw out there, and it's also the affiliates to throw out there. At least the two that I know of that physically have people on site watching in the last week or two. Now, where do we go from here? What should the Mets do? It's really always obviously going to be hard to say. But again, we're in a really weird predicament where I would always say, oh, God forbid, do not trade any of the top prospects. But already in the first half of the season, I think our prospect boards are changing completely as certain guys start doing really well at this point. We have the Jesus Baez getting pushed up fast. You have other guys, Sproat now, who was a senior sign anyway, so he obviously is already jumping up to the higher levels pretty quick. Now, as the other room and the other guys start to move around, it's going to be interesting to say, who else? Or, okay, Dove, who else do you think, might be the guys you could dangle? And maybe, again, I'm talking about Vassell, talking about Hamill from the starting pitcher perspective. From the relievers, it's kind of hard. Like, well, you don't want to trade a reliever, but hey, if one of those organizations, like, I want to, give you one to get one, and even speaking with someone in the Mets organization, I mean, they're also stating the obvious to me. It's like, hey, you got to give to get. So they also understand it's happening. Maybe not at the top 5, like, best guys we have level, but even when you talk about that, who's even in the top 10 anymore? When you mention top 10, there's guys like Acuna, Parada, and at the beginning of the season, where would they be ranked right now based on pure stats? Even though the Mets are still high on Acuna now as far as what they feel he can do for the rest of the season, coaches are still excited about him. They obviously haven't given up on him because the power isn't there right now. But, I mean, these are some of the names getting thrown out. As far as middle infielders, do they want to start like swapping and flipping guys that they got from other teams? As far as the catcher position, I like Ronald Hernandez. Seems to have a really good plate discipline. But would they want to basically flip their whole David Robertson trade and maybe kind of dangle a Marco Vargas and a Ronald Hernandez? Vargas seems like he's been hurt the entire season, unfortunately, but he's obviously still super young with the plate discipline. But again, the Mets, they are full in the system. We can talk about ceiling, all-star level, floor, regular, major leaguer level, but the influx is here. And now that we're even seeing in rehab games, you have Drew Gilbert coming back, you have Jacob Reimer coming back. One's AAA, one's more of the A-ball-ish level, possibly getting to AA for Reimer. As the guys are piling on, there's just way too many of everyone. So is it going to be time to start partying with some of those guys? I would say yes. I guess I wanted to know your guys' thoughts as well. But again, this is the info that I have. I'm still pretty excited. I'm nervous to see which one of my guys are going to get traded. But again, hey, let me know your thoughts, even in the comments, or if you can hit me up on social media, on Twitter X. Let me know. But hey, that's what I got. Those are some of my thoughts. I got to keep doing this. I'm worried about who I'm losing. But hey, I guess we'll see. I'm out.